Hello, darling one, and welcome to my channel. So I am so excited that you're here today because today we are going to work on a project together. If you saw my last episode, you'll know that in this episode we are going to make a gift for a friend. So on my way home on my road trip last month, I got to meet one of my artist friends and artist heroes, Amber Leilani, who is hilarious, by the way. Just a great person and very, very funny. As a side note. So she's a book lover, and so I thought, why don't we make a book sleeve today? So I would like to base this book sleeve on actually a project that I made a couple years ago. I decided to try my hand at making my own dream bag, and it took a very long time to do, so I haven't made any since then. But I thought we could make a book sleeve very similar in style. So this is the bag that I'm talking about right now. I gathered up most of the materials that were used in this were from the antique mall or thrifted from various thrift shops. So we have layered laces and ribbons and hand-dyed fabrics. We have an inset zipper on this bag. I did a transfer, an image transfer. I took a photo of one of my antique dolls, and then I did the image transfer of her face. And I had never done one before this, so that was kind of a big deal. The other image transfer that I did is actually on the back here. I don't know if you can see that or if it shows it backwards, but it says, "Don't be a lady, be a legend," Stevie Nicks, one of my personal heroes. This is a little pocket. I made a zippered pocket back here. It's a backpack. So again, all of these, like this fabric, I found at like the antique mall. These trims were found at the antique mall. I think this was maybe like a Valance or something. I'm not sure. And then for the pull on the zipper, I have an actual doll arm, like a composite doll arm right there. And then, oh, and I put like a necklace for a little bling. And then inside, one other thing is, so I had never cast anything in resin before, but I really wanted for this bag, I wanted like a toggle button that was like a doll arm. And so I took a porcelain doll arm that I had and I made a mold of it, and then I cast it in resin and I painted it, and that's the button let me close it. Sorry. There's the bag closed. And then inside, I put a gazillion pockets. So the inside is also leopard print, of course. And then inside the pockets, we have this sort of floral fabric. So we've got I have like 4 pockets in here, plus another zippered pocket inside. Ugh. And I had never done zippers before. This whole bag was a learning curve, you guys. I had never done zippers, image transfers, resin castings. I had never made a bag before. I'd never made a backpack before. This was really a big learning curve. Let's see here. Oh, and I keep my sunglasses in there so I can look cool whenever I feel like it. I just pull them out, I put them on, and then I look really cool. Anywho, so I was thinking what we could do for the book sleeve is we're just gonna make it really wacky like that. We're just gonna do layers and layers of different laces and textures and trims and just kind of see what happens. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I already went ahead with the design process because it takes me forever to design something. It really does. I sit there and I hem and I haw because I want it to be perfect. Just so you know, the weather is being a little weird today. There's a lot of like cloud cover, and then the sun will come out and then it's cloud cover again. So I don't know if some portions of the video are going to wind up being dark. And if so, I apologize for it. I apologize for the weird lighting, but I'm really trying to work with natural light. It just looks better. And with that, let's get started. Okay, so to begin, I already made my patterns, okay? Because I didn't want to bog you down with designing the pattern and then cutting everything out. So I went ahead and I already created the pattern. I cut out my pieces and I laid out my design. I took pictures of the design so I wouldn't forget. So this is what my table looks like during the design process. Kind of a mess. This right here is the base of the book sleeve. So it looks a little big, and the reason for that is because my pal Amber, she loves to read. She reads a lot of books, and she reads magazines. And so I wanted to make something that would be big enough to hold a thick book or a magazine, should she choose to use that. Now, this book sleeve is also going to have a flap that's going to go over it. And I do hope that the flap is going to be big enough. We're just going to have to find out. Now, some of the trims and things are going to be sewn by sewing machine, and then other things are going to be stitched by hand, just because I want it to look very nice and very professional. And some of the things are just going to have to be hand stitched for that to happen. So anyways, so the book sleeve that I have here is 12 inches by 9.5 inches. And then it says sew 1/4 all the way around. This is the actual size of the cut piece. So that means that when I traced it, I traced all along the edge, and when I sew, I'm going to come in 1/4 inch all the way around. And then on this, this one I just kind of guesstimated. So this is 6.5 inches by 9 inches. And then same thing, I'm going to come in 1/4 inch around. Now, with the top, you know what, we'll deal with that when we come to it. So this is the basic design of the book sleeve that I've done underneath the flap. And this is the basic idea with the flap. Hey, welcome to my sewing machine, where anything is possible. So we are basically just going to go ahead and start pinning down the layers. We're going to start on the bottom because we're going to sew from the bottom up, okay? So you want to look at what's underneath what, and you're going to start with the very bottom piece, and that's the piece we're going to sew down first. And then we'll move up from there. So I hope that you can see this okay. Yes, these are wrinkly. Don't judge me. Come on now. They're scraps. I'm using fabric scraps. All right, so these leopard print pieces are going to be the very first things that I stitch down, okay? Now I want to come right up to the edge here, and I'm just going to pin it. Honestly, I'm just going to pin all along. Now remember, when I sew this, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch in, okay? So that's why I'm putting these leopard print pieces over a little bit, because I don't want them to be right on the edge, okay? Now that the very bottom pieces are pinned on, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch around. So I've decided I want to use the zigzag stitch from my sewing machine because I just really like that kind of messy look that it has. So that's what I'm gonna use for this part, okay? I really hope you can see this. So I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way around. Zigzag. Now I've pinned my next piece down, which is this beautiful antique lace. It actually came on like a garland, which probably a lot of people are cringing about that I actually cut it up. But you know what? You can make so many beautiful things with just one thing, you know? So anyways, here's that. So this is going to be my next piece that I will be stitching down. Hello again. So I just changed my battery. Can you believe that? I've already had to change my battery. Do you know what that means? It means that I talk a lot and this is heavily edited. All right, so next I have pinned down the next piece that we are going to sew, and that is this pretty piece of blue lace right here. This lace was actually from a top that I found at a thrift store. I just really liked it and I think it looks great on here. All right, so let's get that stitched down, shall we? Next, I went ahead and I pinned down the next piece, which is this cheesecloth, which I hand dyed to be this sort of purpley color. And I just love how you can see through that fabric. That's the thing about layering with laces and things, is that yes, you're covering them up, but you can also see through, which it just adds a whole other dimension, which I love, the extra textures and everything. So anyways, let's go ahead and stitch this down, shall we? I've stitched down that cheesecloth, and now I've gone ahead and I pinned on this sort of metallic lace that I found at the antique mall. So yeah, let's go ahead and stitch that on. Now that all of these pieces are stitched on to this piece of fabric, I'm gonna go ahead and start on the flap part, okay? Because we're gonna do a bit of hand stitching on that, but we'll go ahead and just get it stitched up and then we'll figure it out. I'm just making this up as I go along, by the way, so I'm sure there are plenty of better ways to do this, easier ways to do this. This is just my process. Okay, let's move on to the next step, the flap. But first I need a coffee break. That's hot. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the flap. I have a number of things that I want to do with the flap. So this is like a zebra print upholstery fabric that I found. I found like, I don't know, maybe a yard of it at the antique mall. And I'm really trying to get as much out of it as I can because I love it so much. I love animal print, obviously. Anyways, I found this like lace, this like rose lace top that I was able to thrift, and I'm getting a lot of mileage out of the lace roses. So I want to put that in the center of the flap. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin that down, and then we will go from there. I've gone ahead and sewn our lace rose onto this animal print fabric. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to sew the lining onto this. This is the piece that is gonna have a lot of hand stitching because I don't want it to show through the other side. But a lot of the trims and things that I need to put on here, I can't do ahead of time, like before sewing on the lining. I know this doesn't make sense right now, but believe me, it will. So for the lining, I'm going to use the sort of teal leopard print. As it turns out, my pal Amber also loves leopard print. So that's what we're going to use for the lining in this book sleeve. All right, so what I need to do is I'm going to have them facing backwards, okay? So we want the right sides facing toward each other, okay? Because when we turn it inside out, we want it all to have the true pattern on the outside, if that makes sense. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Hey there. All right, so I went ahead and I pinned down the top flat piece onto the lining. Now you'll notice that the lining is a little bit bigger than the actual flap, and I like to do that with like velvets and upholstery fabrics because when you're stitching them sometimes they can shift around, so it's nice to have like a little bit of extra give around the area in case it shifts. Okay, so that way you're not like short on fabric. Okay, so let's stitch this up, shall we? We're gonna go with just the straight stitch. I have been using the zigzag stitch, but I no longer want to use that. So I'm gonna come in 1/4 of an inch, and I'm not gonna sew along the top, okay, because the top is where we're gonna flip it inside out. So we just wanna go around the edge, okay, just around the little smiley face, okay? Here we go. Okay, so I just remembered a little detail just in time. I almost screwed myself over. All right, so I made this sort of ratty, you probably can't see it very well, this sort of like ratty crocheted chain. The reason why I made it is because it's going to secure the button when we do the sort of, it's going to be like a toggle, essentially. I'm going to do about 1.5 inches of loop, okay? So what I need to do, and I'm so sorry that I didn't show you this before, is I'm going to take my piece here, I'm going to stick it right in. We have to put it inside, okay? You can't see, I'm so sorry. I'll show you. Once we get this stitched on, you'll see what I'm talking about, and I'm so sorry if I'm confusing any of you. I don't mean to. Okay, let's go back to the sewing machine. You'll see. So you see here how it's coming out the top, and the strands, the loose strands, are on the outside, which means that the loop is on the inside, okay? For now, when we flip it inside out, that loop is going to be on the outside, and you're going to be so happy. All right, so let's go ahead and get this going again. Beautiful. So now what we need to do is we have this all stitched on. We are going to cut along the edge. I'm just going to leave the top on the part on top, okay, that you can put your hand in. I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to cut that, okay? But I will cut all the way around. We'll cut 1/4 of an inch from where the sewing line is, okay? All the way around. And I'm just gonna leave my little threads, okay? Because they're crocheted and I want them to stay intact, okay? So we'll just leave those. Now that I've trimmed along the edge all the way around, except on top, remember, I'm going to go ahead and just cut little like slits along the curves. All right, so that when we turn it inside out, it lays a little flatter. Okay, so I'm not going all the way up to the line, just barely, leaving maybe like 1/8 of an inch just below it. Here, maybe you can see better on this side. Do you see? I'm not going all the way to the line. Hi. Can you see me? On the wider curve, you don't have to cut as close to each other, okay? Because it's not gonna curve up as much. That probably doesn't make any sense to you, but there it is. I am not very good at explaining. Sorry. I'm doing my best here. Guys, tutorials are actually really hard to film. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of thought. And some things get lost in the wayside. Okay, so now, moment of truth. Let's go ahead and just run this over it. Okay, a little bit on the front and the back, and then I'm going to turn it inside out. We're going to see how amazing this looks. Here we go. Here's our flap. We're going to turn it, going to take it, turn it inside out. There she is. There's our beautiful little lady. All right. So she looks a little funky right now because we're gonna need to go in and just kind of like stitch it down along the edge just to sort of like reinforce it and also get it to lay flatter. But you'll see our little loop right here is sticking out, and that's really good. Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch around the edge. I think we could come in, I'm gonna say let's come in 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Okay, I think that would look good. All right, let's do it. All right, and again, we're just gonna come in with a straight stitch around, okay? So no zigzag this time. We're gonna go all the way up. But we're just gonna leave 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So I have stitched all the way around. I can't tell if you can tell or not, but it just kind of gets it to lay flatter and nicer, okay? So now I'm gonna hand stitch a bunch of stuff onto this because this was the piece that I like. If I were to stitch stuff on now with the sewing machine, it would go right through onto this, and I don't want it to show through on there, okay? So I'm gonna hand stitch the things that I want onto it. So let's have a look. Okay, so first things first, I want to take this green lace, which I've cut into strips, and I want to make a ruffle along the edge. Okay, and I don't want it to come very far past the flap. And also, I'm going to start this a little bit low, okay? And the reason for that is that when I sew the flap on, I don't want the lace to interfere. I'm really bad at explaining these things to you, and I'm so sorry about it. I am hoping that as you follow along, you'll just kind of see what I'm doing, and even if it doesn't make sense right away, that it will eventually make sense. I hope. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this green lace ruffle around the edge by hand. All right, so I'm going to come down about 1/2 inch from the top of the upholstery fabric, okay? And I'm going to stitch it on coming through the back. I'm just going to sort of get that quickly attached. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of like ruffle by hand. So I'm going to fold, and I know there are easier ways to do this. I know this, but this is just how I operate. Okay, so I just make the little fold, and then I'm just going to stitch it down. Okay, and I'm going to do that all I'm going to do that all along the edge. Hey there. I just wanted to take a minute to show you the progress. So this is what the green ruffle is starting to look like. I'm about halfway done. It is taking a while to do the ruffles by hand. And also I'm trying really hard not to go through the back piece. Remember, we just want to go through the front piece, which is why we didn't use the sewing machine to begin with. But it's looking real good. It's turning into an airy-fairy dream come true. All right, so I'm just gonna continue on and we will reconvene once this is all finished. Okay. Next, I'm going to take this amazing trim. It looks like, so I found this at the antique mall as well. This looks like trim that was maybe taken off of an antique dance costume. And you know, sometimes I find these little gems and I hoard them and I hoard them because I don't want to throw them away on some stupid project. But I feel like, what is a better use for something so beautiful than on a gift to a good friend? So, my plan for this is now I'm going to go along the inside of this this ruffle that I've made, all along the edge, and I'm just gonna stitch it on. I'll show you once it's done. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna hand stitch it, same rules, only through the top layer, and it will also add extra security for the ruffles going around. So I have 2 rows of stitches going along the edge. So we have an inside stitch and an outside stitch along the pink trim. And the stitch that I used, I like to lovingly refer to as the sloppy stitch, which means anything goes. See, there's what it looks like on the inside. So it's basically a whip stitch that I used. And basically, here's my thought. If you can glue something, you can sew something. And the reason is because thread, and a needle and thread is essentially just glue for fabric. Anything goes, guys. Anything goes. You don't have to, like, if you've never sewn before and you're afraid to start, just do it. Just do it. Just start messing around and see what happens. All right, so next, I am going to put this sort of orange fringe around the top of the flap. And I think I'm going to come down just a smidgen, like that, okay? Because when I sew the flap on, I'm going to come in 1/4 inch at the top, all right? You'll see what I'm talking about. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this orange fringe on, which I also found at the antique mall. I actually found like a whole bunch of it. Hooray. So I'm not gonna lie to you, this hand stitching really is taking a while. I think altogether with the lace and the sort of antique costume trim, I would say probably it took me like an hour, hour and a half to do. So I'm gonna put this on now, and I don't know, it might take like another half hour or so. Which the reason I bring that up is because I am losing some daylight. So part of this may be filmed with lights on instead of natural light. So sorry about that. But you know, can't control the daylight. All right, so let's get started. Guess what? I almost forgot to tell you. Look, we have a scrap left over, which means that this beautiful piece of antique costume trim gets to live to see another project. Isn't that exciting? Eee! Ah! This is our top flap, all done. The next step that we're gonna do is we are going to sew the back of the book sleeve, and because I have some things that I want to attach to the backing as well, because I don't want all the stuff just to be in the front. I mean, I'm not going to go all out like I did on the front of this book sleeve, but there's got to be a little something. Plus, I have my Forever Fall label that I want to stick on the back there so that my friend will always know who it came from. Okay, it's official. I'm running out of daylight. So let me show you what the back piece is. It's this almost like a tapestry fabric. I found it also at the antique mall. It was this kind of pink color, but I wanted some purple, so I actually hand dyed a portion of it purple, and that's what we're going to use for the back of the book sleeve. And I'm going to attach this sort of rust-colored lace to it. This is from like a kimono that I found at a thrift store. I actually made something for another friend, which was like a mishmash of rust-colored kimonos, and so I have some left over, so I'll be using that for this project. Okay, now it's time to sew my label on. So I actually made this kind of stamp, and I got some fabric ink, and then I just rolled it out, stamped it down, stamp. Okay, I've stitched on my label, and I put it over some leopard print scrap. Big surprise there. All right, so now on the back, I just have one more thing that I'd like to add. So sometimes I'll get like printed fabrics. They actually work really well with like collaging, like fabric collaging. So I cut out this vintage pumpkin looking person, and I am going to stitch it onto the back. I have stitched on that little vintage pumpkin person, and this is what our back looks like now. Now we have the warm glow of unnatural light. Hope that's not a problem for you, but I really want to finish this in a day. So, moving forward, I gave it some thought and determined that this is going to, the flap needs to be attached to the back piece, okay? So essentially what I want it to look like is it's going to open like this, okay? So that's how I want to sew it on. So it's going to be right sides facing each other, okay? So sewing it to the back piece at the top, okay? And it's right sides facing each other. And I'm gonna go ahead and stitch that on. I'm gonna go right along the edge, right along the very edge of the fabrics, because when I sew the lining on, I'm gonna go down even further, okay? So I think I'm only gonna stitch it together maybe like 1/8 of an inch, just right on the very edge of the fabrics, okay? So let me do that, and then I'll show you how it looks, okay? I went ahead and trimmed down this part so that it's flush with the zebra print. All right, once again, we are using my good friend zigzag stitch to go along the edge here, and the reason is because there's a lot of there's a lot of fraying along the edge here, and I'm hoping that by doing this it will help contain it a little better, and then the rest of the sewing will be easier. We'll see. Oh dear, do you know what? I think this flap is going to be a little crooked. Oh well. Oh well. Yeah, you see, so this side, there's more space than on this side, but Oh well. Next, we're gonna sew these two pieces together. So basically the front and the back, we're gonna sew together. And then I have this trim that I kind of want to sort of hang off, like you see on my bag here that I had made. I used the same sort of fringe, and so it kind of goes along the edge, which I think just gives it a little more like texture and a little more, I don't know, it's just a little more fun. So we are going to do that with our book sleeve. Just kind of like, I don't know, make it a little more elegant. So the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna go ahead and sort of like stitch this right along the edge, okay? And like, so once again, we're gonna do right sides facing each other, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch this along the edge of this, okay? Do you see what I'm doing? So it's gonna stitch along, and then the next piece is gonna go against it, okay? So this is gonna be tucked inside so that when we turn it inside out, this fringe just comes right out like that, okay? I hope that's making sense to you out there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this along, and then we will sew the two pieces together, and then we'll be ready for our lining, which is essentially the final piece. Very exciting. Hi. Okay, so once again, we are going right along that edge, just like right on the edge. And the reason is because when we put the other piece on top of here, we're going to stitch it a quarter inch inside, okay? So we're just going right along the outside right now, okay? Because when we turn it inside out, we want it to lay out flat, like we don't want it to stick up everywhere, okay? I don't know if this is making any sense to you, and I hope that it is. Okay, here we go. Right along the edge. Now that we are all stitched on there, okay, around the outside, I'm gonna go ahead and take my back piece, put them right sides together, and I'm going to sew just along the sides and the bottom, okay? Actually, one thing I forgot to mention is that we need to tape this inside so that when we stitch it together, it lays flat inside, okay? All right, so I'm gonna take this masking tape. I know it's like a weird shape. I don't know how it got smushed, but it did. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of like push it in and then try to tape it down as best I can. Okay, so I'm gonna do that all along the edge, and then I will attach the other piece where I just sew along the sides and the bottom. Okay, here we are all taped up. Not very pretty, but it's not meant to be. We're gonna be taking that off at some point. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lay the back piece down, and then I'm going to lay the top piece, the front piece on top of it, and I'm going to pin it together as best I can, and then I will stitch a quarter inch all the way around. All right, I've pinned her, so now I'm gonna sew her a little weird. This isn't gonna be like a normal way, but again, we're coming in a quarter of an inch all the way around. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a straight stitch, and both of these fabrics will move around and shift around, and that's why I'm kind of sewing it weird. I'm not gonna do a U shape. I'm gonna just do one at a time to make sure that that I have everything lining up as well as I can. Now that I have the main pieces sewn together, I'm going to go ahead and sew the lining part, and then we will attach the lining to this. Now, probably normally on a book sleeve, people will use like some kind of batting inside between the fabrics, just to make sure that there's like an extra layer of protection for their book. But this upholstery fabric, these fabrics are so thick that I don't think we need another layer aside from these and the lining. So let's do the lining. Once again, for the lining, I'm using this teal leopard print fabric. Again, sorry about the discoloration of everything now, because it's, you know, so late in the day that we need to have lamp lights on. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and straight stitch this, but I'm only gonna do it on the sides, on the long sides. That's the only thing we're gonna do, okay? Do not sew all the way around. Do not sew a U shape, just the long sides, okay? And you'll see why in a moment, which I'm hoping I'm doing this right. Every time I do something like this, I just kind of make it up as I go along and hope for the best. So here's hoping. All right, see you in a moment. Okay, I've sewn my two pieces together along the length of this, and I did 1/4 of an inch in. And then we'll see if we can attach this to the outer part without a problem. I've turned our little book sleeve inside out, actually the correct side out, okay? So when it closes, look at that, it's gonna look so pretty. We're gonna leave the tape on for now, but here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna leave that flap open. We are going to take the lining piece and we are gonna slide it so they're facing right side to each other, okay? So we're gonna take this and put it over the bag, okay? I know this seems kind of backwards right now, but you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so we have our lining in there. Now what I want to do is I want to line up the lining with the fabric, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way around, And we want this flap tucked in, okay? So it's just like that. It's tucked in. It's not inside, okay? It's on the outside, all right? That's where the flap is. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up the seams, and then I will stitch, or I'll pin all the way around, and then I will sew it down using a straight stitch. And then I'll probably go over it with a zigzag stitch also, just to secure it a little bit better. So I'm gonna do that, and then we will reconvene. I've pinned her all the way around at the top. So now I'm gonna take the shelf off of my sewing machine, and we will get to work sewing this all the way around. Fingers crossed. Okay, so do you see what I mean by taking the shelf off? I can use this. This little piece, it's like, you can use it for like sleeves or like jeans, if you're into that sort of thing. So I'm gonna open this bad boy up, stick it right in here around, and poke myself a lot with all of these pins. All right, so we are just going to start wherever. And I'm going to come in a 1/4 inch all the way around. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Straight stitch, don't forget. The other thing is, if you're using a sewing machine for this, and I do recommend a sewing machine for this part, just to make it more sturdy, but I guess you could hand stitch. But another thing to note is that the needle that you want to use for something like this is going to be like a denim needle, so like a thicker needle, because it needs to go through all this upholstery fabric. Like the part that I'm stitching right now has the flap in there as well, so it's like multiple layers of thick fabric. Okay, so you want to use a nice sturdy needle. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have gone along the top with a zigzag stitch just to ensure that any further fraying doesn't really occur. Do you see how frayed that material gets? We don't want that to happen anymore, because we want this to last and stand the test of time. So now for the moment of truth. We'll turn it inside out, see how it looks. You guys, it worked! It worked. Awesome. All right, so do you see? My hair. Do you see? So it's sewn in a way that it's going to be nice and professional looking all the way through. So, which is funny because I'm just winging it the whole time. But yeah, so now we are going to kind of stitch this shut. So I'm going to fold it in. Okay, this is the inside lining. So I'm going to fold it in just like a 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to stitch real close to the bottom. Okay. And then we'll be able to tuck that right inside. All right, once again, I am winging it. I know some people might use like an iron and like iron it down. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll just like press it down with my fingernails, and it kind of keeps a little fold shape to it. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that real close to the edge. And we want to do a straight stitch. Okay, so we are stitched right along that edge. I'm going to trim my little threads. Bink, bink. And now we're going to go ahead and tuck this inside. Perfect. Looks good. All right. So now what I want to do is, do you see how this is just kind of like flopsy bopsy, just kind of like hanging out? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it down, and then I'm just going to like stitch it. I'm going to stitch it down all the way around, 1/4 inch down, okay? Just to make sure that it's laying nice in there. I hope this works. I think this is a little smaller than I thought it was going to be. I don't know that a magazine could fit in here, but you could fit a big book, I guess. Whoops. A lot of the time things don't really turn out the way you plan them to. Oh well. Okay, so let's do that. So once again, I'm gonna take the shelf off of my sewing machine. That's what I call it. I'm not really sure what the correct term is for that. And honestly, what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna do all the way around. I'm not gonna do a quarter inch. I'm not gonna worry about the back, okay? I'm just gonna worry about stitching along the front because that's really where the problem is. And also I'm gonna go ahead and take this tape off up top. And it's taking a bunch of this stuff with it. That's okay. That's all right. We're fine with that. And we're gonna do a straight stitch once again. Now that we have our beautiful book sleeve, look how stunning that is. We're still not done yet because I want to add this pink, a burst of pink, like it's like a flower, like a rosette, with some green sort of like ribbons that are going to be like vines hanging down in different colors. And then also I have this button here that I made for that to go inside that loophole. So it was made with using like a little wooden disc that I sanded down and then I painted it gold. I found this beautiful image of a moon, which I printed off and then adhered to this. And then I put some sparkles, you can see the glitter. I put some glitter in there and then I sealed it with epoxy resin on top. And then once it was all finished, like once it was all dry, I had my husband drill some holes in it to make it into a button. So that's gonna go on our pretty bag. Just another little whimsical piece. All right, so I'm gonna attach all of those items and then we will reconnect when everything is done and we will try maybe, I don't know, putting a book inside and see how it looks. So in order to determine where I want to attach the button, I'm going to test it out. I'm gonna try putting books inside and see where the flap lays. And wherever that is where I'm going to attach my button. So, and I did test a magazine. It just barely fits an Enchanted Living magazine. And this is not a very thick one, so that'll work. But let's see if we take a big fat book and stick it in there. All right, so this is how it folds down, and this is our loop. So we are going to want to put the button right about there. So just to be sure, I'm gonna put the magazine inside as well to see where that falls. My stomach's growling, can you hear it? Okay, so there's the magazine inside. It just barely fits, but when we put the flap over, actually that's pretty close. I think I'm gonna stitch it on there, right where we determined with the big fat book. Well, hello there. New day, same dress. That's what I always like to say. Here she is. What do you think? Isn't she lovely? She's trashy, yet tasteful. All right, let's get a good look at our girl here. Look at all those details, everyone. All those layers look really good on there. All right, let's open her up. Take a look at the inside. Yes. Yes. Leopard print, love to see it. Looks really good. Nice and professional looking. And then we flip it over. The back. Looks good, guys. Think she'll like it? Okay, guys, so now that our beautiful book sleeve is completed, it would be an absolute travesty to send it in the mail without a book inside. Am I right? So I've decided that I'm going to send a copy of one of my favorite cozy reads. This is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. And it is just very cozy, very sweet, very magical, whimsical, witchy, all of the things that just make you feel good. And I know she hasn't read it yet, and I really think she's gonna love it, so I'm gonna stick it in there. So the other thing about making a special gift for a friend is that if you're gonna go through all the trouble to make something so special, well, then you have to wrap it as the prize that it is. So I found this amazing leopard print wrapping paper, and I have some bright pink ribbon. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up real pretty like, and then we will revisit. Okay, here she is all wrapped up. Isn't she beautiful? All right, now one other little detail that I want to add to the package is, I was super inspired by like tags from just like, we bought a like an ottoman at Home Goods, and the tags that were attached to the ottoman were like tarot card sized. And so I was super inspired to kind of paint my own semi-tarot card. So this is the back of the card. And then this is what I did for the front. I was thinking about the moon because that's what I used for the button. I used a little moon image. And so in staying with that theme, I went with the word luminous. Isn't that a delicious word? Anywho, so whenever you wind up with like big tags, or even, I mean, here's another one. Look at that. There's so much you can do with them. You just paint over them and you can reuse them. How cool is that? So I'm gonna take a bit of ribbon and put it through, and then I'm gonna tie it onto the package, okay? And here it is with the tag attached. Don't you just wanna tear it open? I know I do. And I already know what's inside. Okay, guys, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is that I usually have lipstick all over my teeth. Here's the thing, is that when I put makeup on and I start filming, I'm not even thinking about, do I have lipstick all over the freaking place? I just start recording, and I don't realize it until hours and hours later when I'm reviewing the footage and I'm editing the video that I realize that there is black all over my teeth. So I guess what I'm getting at is that I do realize this is a thing. And secondly, your girl Corpsey Lou is just always going to be a little bit trashy. That's just the way it is. All right, let's talk about the next thing. Since our project for this episode was a book sleeve, I thought, of course, maybe we should touch on some books that I read in the last couple of months. So I'm not like a huge reader. I'm not like a book talk, booktube sort of person. But, you know, I like to read. And I'm going to tell you what I think about them. All right, so first of all, we're gonna start with a dud. I tried to read this one. This one, One Dark Window, is very popular. People love the magical system in it. I just couldn't get into it. My problem with this book is that the interpersonal relationships that the people had felt very similar to, say, like a Sarah J. Maas book or like Fourth Wing. No shade to those books, but after you've read a number of those kinds of books, they all start to kind of like blend into each other. Like the friend groups all kind of feel the same. The main characters kind of start to feel the same. So I could not finish this one. I tried. I know people love it. It just wasn't for me. And now on to some that I actually really enjoyed. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Hungerstone. So if you'll remember back in September, I think, either September or October, I read Carmilla. I think it was October actually. And that book was so good. I loved it so much. It was short, it was sweet, it was to the point, and it was very well written. Great story. Will definitely read it every October for the rest of my life, probably. Anyways, Hungerstone by Kat Dunn is sort of like a retelling. And of course, so it's a vampire story, and the vampire is female, and her name is Carmilla. And I don't know about you, but I always, like, when I'm reading, I try to like cast the characters in my mind as I'm reading it. And I have to tell you, Carmilla to me was Eva Green. I wonder if anyone else out there envisioned Eva Green when they were reading this. But honestly, I will cast her in any book that I'm reading that I can because I love her so much. Anyways, this book, it is really well written. It is a great story. There is a lot of female rage in this book. And I don't know, lately that's something I like to read about. I don't need to explain myself. But anyways, I guess what I would say about this is that it's a great book. I actually prefer the original. I prefer Camilla, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a good book. I'd say the hype is real. It's a really good Gothic novel. So my friend Amber, whom I stayed with on my road trip and who we made the book sleeve for, has been trying to get me to read this book. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. And so when I stayed with her, she pulled it off her shelf and she said, you could read this in 4 days. And I tell you what, I could not put this down. It was so good. It was, of course, it is a vampire story of some kind. Very interesting, great characters. Man, I tell you what, Grady Hendrix can write a woman. He can. He does it so well, and I don't know how he does it, but he does. The friend group, the depth of the characters, very good, very good. I highly recommend it. Honestly, I think every woman should read this book. There's also a bit of female rage in this as well. And there is a satisfying comeuppance, so highly recommend. Okay, and my current reads, I actually have 2 that I'm reading right now, and I am enjoying both of them so much that I thought I'd just go ahead and talk about them, even though I'm not finished with them. So this one I've been reading Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fido, I think it's how you say it, Virginia Fido. I am really enjoying this book. It's about a governess who has been taken on at this family estate. And the family, first of all, they're all horrible people, so you're kind of rooting for their demise. But the main character, the protagonist, is actually a psychopath. And just, I've never read a character like her before. She is grotesque, she is creepy. The things she does, the things she says, it's super duper creepy, but also like funny at the same time. There have been so many times where I'm just reading a chapter, I'm going along, and then she does something and my jaw sort of drops because I'm like, oh no, no, she didn't. And yes, she did. So anyways, I highly recommend this book. I think it's very well written. It's an unforgettable character. Highly recommend. So I've simultaneously been trading off Victorian Psycho with this book, Legends and Lattes. Victorian Psycho can get pretty dark, and so I've just kind of been using this as a palate cleanser. I had heard that it was just a very cozy read, and just kind of a sweet story. And that's kind of what I like to trade off on when I'm reading something that can get pretty dark. Also, I've been known to love a Dungeons and Dragons campaign every now and again. So this story is about an orc who has decided that she's done with fighting and adventuring, and she just kind of wants to put down roots somewhere for the first time. So she decides she's going to open a coffee shop in this kind of like city that had never heard of coffee before. And so she essentially like scouts out a location, makes a new friend, they start fixing it up together. And it is a very sweet story. I'm not very far into it, but I can see why it's so popular. And I think at this point, even though I'm not very far in, I still would very much recommend it. It's just such a sweet, simple, like kind story. So yeah, I would recommend Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. Well, here we are. It looks like we've come to the end of our video. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on this crafting journey with me. I've really enjoyed making this project with you. And Amber, if you're watching this, I just wanted to say I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that my thank you gift is getting out so late because, here's the thing. I'm always late. It's how I roll. But better late than never. So in our next video, we are going to make Valentines. And, here's the thing. Every year I think to myself, I'm going to make some Valentines for all of the people that I love and care about in my life so that I can send them something special in the mail. But then time gets away from me and I never get around to it. But this year is the year and we're going to do this. We're going to do this together. And I cannot wait. So until then, have a perfectly magical day, everyone. Bye for now. That's some damn fine coffee.